Yo, yo. Welcome to the show, bro. You already know, fo. So, Shapiro. Shapiro is like Fuentes. Shapiro is like rest in peace to Mr. Kirk. These guys say exactly what needs to be said, no matter what the fuck the consequences is. No matter who don't like it. You know? For real. Yeah, so Mr. Shapiro, he went to the Breakfast Club where a lot of controversial conversations can happen. And I'm just gonna jump out on a limb right now. I'm gonna say that this one got bad. I mean, it said get heated, but I'm with me maybe uh seeing the kind of questions that Charlemagne or DJ would ask of this man. I can see how this could get heated. So, without further ado, if you're up to nothing, hit the button. If you're on my side, go and subscribe. We're about to jump right into this interview at the Breakfast Club with Ben Shapiro.
And you believe in banning abortions, right?
I'm pro-life, yes.
Even in cases of incest and rape?
Yes.
Why?
Because this is a sort of a fundamental definitional question. If you believe life begins at conception, then regardless of the source of the life, it now has an independent interest in life. So that is not to minimize the tremendous evil of rape or incest. I believe rapists should be executed, frankly, or chemically castrated at best. But that's sort of a different question from the independent source of life and whether this, again, it gets back to definitions. And this conversation tends to be either you're on one side of that or the other. If you don't believe life begins at conception, then obviously you believe abortion is acceptable in a wide variety of circumstances. If you believe it's an independent life deserving of protection, then you believe it's an independent life deserving of protection.
Lauren, what do you think about that? I'm just as a woman.
I think that a woman should be able to choose to do what she wants to do wherever she decides to do it. I believe that women should be able to abort babies if they want to, if they feel like that's what they need to do.
Do you have a time limit on that, out of curiosity?
I mean, I think it should happen earlier on if it were me making a decision for myself, but I think it's up to the woman and what she's personally experiencing and what she personally went through. I really think it's a per person thing. That's why I think it's crazy.
Y'all let me know what y'all think about abortions. I'm kind of, um, yeah, yeah.
You have like
I'm against it. I'm against it. 96% of the time.
like these structures and these like people who are not in that situation making a decision for the woman of what you can and can't do, because it's very like per person. My situation might be different than another woman who's sitting next to me.
Right. So again, this is sort of the definitional issue that we're talking about, because you're talking about what a woman should be allowed to do. And what I'm talking about is the definition of personhood of the separate person inside the woman. I think that what I'd push on is why do you personally believe that a woman should have an abortion earlier?
I think and from personal experience, I've been in a situation. I just think emotionally and mentally, it's less that you think about, but it does depend on how you think of when the life is formed or should be looked at as like a life that you
right. So that
yeah.
I think is the big question, and that's where the disconnect is.
But what I'm saying is that's always going to be different for each person.
But I don't think that
I think what she's trying to say is that a woman should be able to do what she wants to with her body, which I agree. But what he's saying is that the life inside of her is not hers to take. That's why I think the disconnect will come in at it most of the time.
Objective definition of life is how we define life, meaning that you being uncomfortable with a woman having an abortion in the 9th month, you're saying that just because you're uncomfortable with it, that doesn't mean that you should stop a woman from doing that. My point is that life has a definition, right? We all agree, for example, that a 1-month-old baby should not be drowned. Right? We all agree on that. And that's not up to the personal, should not be drowned. You shouldn't take the baby and drown in a bathtub, right? And the question is, well, why? Because we now understand that the 1-month-old baby, everyone agrees with this, right? That except for Peter Singer at Princeton, that a 1-month-old baby has an independent interest in life, right? That is a life that is separate from the woman and requires protection. Okay, so if it is a life, then we now have an objective definition. It doesn't matter what the state of mind of the woman is. It doesn't matter if she thought, you know what, I have a really tough life. My life will be better off if this baby is drowned, if I don't have to deal with this baby, and so I'm going to drown the baby. The baby has an independent actual interest in living. And so the question becomes, is that true before birth. And I think for the vast majority of Americans are actually somewhere where you are practically, meaning that the vast majority of Americans do see in sort of a soft way a distinction between, the early stages of life, month 2 and 9-month, right? Like the approval in America of abortion at the very late stages is very, very low because most Americans.
It stops around like 4 or 5 months for most people, right?
Well,
like,
I mean,
most places.
most abortions are performed in the first trimester.
Yeah.
Yes. But the point that I'm making is that the logic that you're using allows for abortion like literally right before the baby is born. And so then the question becomes, why is that okay? And it's not a woman's choice at that point, whether that is a life or not, because you don't get to artificially or subjectively define the meaning of
I get
things.
that. We're playing with semantics, though. But
Yeah, that's what
it's not semantic. Either it's a life or it's not a life, right?
If your daughter was raped,
No,
it's almost like you're saying she's raped, but I'm gonna make her have this child.
No, I mean,
because you're saying you don't believe in abortion, even if rape and incest, right?
What I'm saying there is that I don't believe in abortion in cases of rape and incest. The practical effect is horrible. Okay, I'm not going to pretend that it is not emotionally.
See, and that's what they really be missing. They miss the fact that most people are not okay with how we got here. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying that, oh, she shouldn't have got this or he shouldn't have. No, that's not what we're saying. We're talking about after that happens and you find out you're pregnant, is that still not a life, no matter if it's one that was forced up on you to develop. It was forced up on you to develop. But does that mean get rid of it? It's still a human. It's still a human in there. So at that point, if there's a human, if the courts say once you conceive that's a human, do you get life for that murder? Because that's a murder. It doesn't matter how you look at it. That's where the disconnect gonna be at. It's not about how we got here. It's about what we do when we get here. That's what it is.
Horrifying. That particular situation. The question is whether it has an independent interest in life or not, and whether there's a third party involved. If you don't believe there's a third party deserving of protection, I totally get it. I get it. But we should understand that that's the actual conversation. The actual conversation is about whether you believe that this is an interested third party being.
Right.
Do you get to kill that interested third party being, this human life with potential, or do you not? If you, and so the actual argument that I don't like is the idea that you can. That everybody, it's up to every single person to define when life begins and when life does not begin. That actually is not true, right? There's either a standard or there's not a standard. Now, you can say that life begins when the baby is independent of the mom. Okay? I think it's a very dicey biological argument, and I think most Americans agree with that life only begins when the baby exits.
I think it begins with a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's where most Americans are, and that's extremely early, right? And so if the life begins with the heartbeat, then you're now talking about, depending on your definition of a heartbeat, somewhere between 6 and 10 weeks, right? Very, very, very early. And so if that now has an independent interest, you're talking about abortion restrictions very early on. And so that's why, a lot of red states have signed heartbeat laws, for example. Right? And so, again, I think that the clarity is good, right? Because now we can have a conversation. Where do you think life begins? And that's a better conversation than the sort of assumption by, I think, people who are not pro-life, that pro-life, it's just about controlling the woman's body. No, it isn't. Okay, it really is not. Like for pro-lifers, it has literally nothing to do with the woman's body. It has to do with the independent interest of the life inside.
Monday.com, the opposite of any work platform we tried in the past. We tried other work management platforms.
I probably should have been ready for a mute right there, but it's cool. Yeah, I agree. It starts with the life as soon as the heartbeat hit, because you'll get, if the baby is outside of the mother, you'll get hurt at 1 month. So why wouldn't it be that if it's the heartbeat that counts?
You need to listen to this. In today's AI and cyber, for pro-lifers, it has literally nothing to do with the woman's body. It has to do with the independent interest of the life inside the woman and how you define that. If you're a homeowner, you need to listen to this. In today's AI and cyber world, scammers is in the chief asset you own. Protect your equity as it begins at a heart.
Once you define it, depending on your definition, it does control what a woman can and can't do with her body.
Well, there are downstream effects to definitions, of course, right? I mean, if I define life as it begins at a heartbeat, then that is going to have public policy ramifications that affect, and just as in anything else, if I define theft in a particular way, that's going to have downstream effects on people who commit that definition of the crime. And if I broaden the definition, it's going to include more people. And that's true for literally any legal term. It's true for any word that we use in life. As you expand the definition, it affects more people in different ways. But that doesn't change the necessity to have the conversation about what the definition is. And I think it's an easy way out to basically say,
if they went countrywide with what the definition of legally getting an abortion is, I think that'll end all of the talk about it. So you have to make a definition of when life begins, and if it went countrywide, you will go to jail for an abortion after that point.
Well, I have a definition of life, but and it gets into very dicey territory because historically people have defined away entire populations as not human, and so we can't do that, right? Like you really don't want people looking at other people and saying, well, I don't think that this person. I mean, to take the obvious and most controversial example, for a huge percentage of American history, there was a wide variety of people in America who believed black people were not fully human, and therefore you couldn't enslave them.
Yep,
Right?
compromise.
Correct. And so like so was that a subjective question? That was not a subjective question. Black people are fully human and just as human as white people, equal, the same, right? Like and so if somebody were to say, listen, I personally am anti-slavery, right? I think that slavery is personally wrong, but it's really up to every person to define for themselves whether a black person is fully a human or not fully a human. Be like, what the?
I don't think you can
like,
compare those two things.
Why?
Just because I think, if I'm making, so if you're a slave master, right, and you say, I believe slavery is right because black people aren't human, like, that's a decision that you're making that is based on things like, what the slaves can do for you on your property. Like the benefit of what slavery will do for that slave master is so different than if a woman has to have a baby because she was raped and how that will affect her life. Like that, I think you have a decision that you can make a lot easier.
It's almost like you force a woman twice, right? Because
yeah,
she
like,
says
do
no,
I become a slave master or not versus do I have a baby or not?
She has this baby and now she's forced to have
Let's
a
try a
child.
Jewish analogy. Go.
Sure. So I mean, sure. So if there was an entire population in Europe that was considered subhuman by the Nazis and they were exterminated, if you said, I am personally against the extermination of the Jews, but I understand why Germans could think that Jews are subhuman, and so it really is up to every individual to determine whether a Jew is human or not fully human and can be put in the back of a van and gassed. We'd be like, what in the world?
You're saying there should be no pro-choice in regards to that?
Yeah, so the definitions are not a matter of choice. Definitions are a matter of actual objective fact. Otherwise, we can't even have a conversation. Because if words have meanings, then we all have to agree on at least that, right? That much we have to agree on is the meaning of the words. And when it comes to, sort of the slave master analogy, the point that I'm making here is not about the personal experience of the slave master. In fact, I'm saying it's completely irrelevant. What I'm saying is that the reason that slavery was wrong is because black people are fully independent human beings who require the protection of the law in the same way as everyone else. And if you're a pro-lifer, you believe that's also true of the unborn.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I'm a pro.
He brought it back around in a full circle. If you don't understand that, then go and read a couple of definitions and maybe you'll get it.
Pro-choice person. But I do wonder, how come pro-life people aren't anti-war?
Well, I mean,
Because
I think everybody is anti-war. I think the question is the definition of when war is appropriate. I don't who's running around going like, war is awesome. Yes, more war. Let's do it.
So 50,000 kids have been killed in Gaza because of this current war.
Depends on the definitions
Well, killed
and
and
the list
injured,
that you're getting.
right?
Well, I mean, also depends on how you're defining kid, because the way that Hamas defines kid is very different than how they define kid when it comes to recruiting for Hamas, right? They're 15-year-olds with AKs on the battlefield, unfortunately.
Out of the womb.
It is not 50,000
Well,
out of the womb.
okay.
I mean, if you're talking about like very, very small children, it is much, much lower than
But
that.
my point is, there are children that are being killed.
Yes, who have died as collateral damage in the war, yes.
So shouldn't pro-lifers be totally against that?
Well, I mean, I'm against the death of any innocent human being. The question is, when you're doing foreign policy, how you prevent more deaths in the future. And the point that I think Israel is making is this war
So you're
was
basing it off legislation, and it's actually not a matter of morals and values. Or religion.
Of course, it's a matter of morals and values. But you can't be. Let's put it this way: it's incredibly reductive to simply say that if you are a moral person, then you oppose all war, because what that does, it allows immoral people to then use that against you to destroy your civilization. If your community is attacked and bad people who don't have the same values as you decide to kill you, kill your children, rape your wife, and kill her, are you supposed to say, well, I'm anti-war, and so I'm going to sit here and do nothing?
So isn't that the same if somebody rapes a woman and impregnates them? Shouldn't, in that case, that person be allowed to make a choice?
Well, no, the point is that the prevention, this is why you should minimize civilian casualties. To get back to the beginning of the conversation, this is why it's independently moral to try as much as possible to minimize civilian casualties. Right? When it comes to abortion, the idea is you can minimize that casualty by just preventing it.
You're right.
How can you prevent being raped?
Well, I mean, that's a different question. Again,
But let's talk about that, because what I don't like
No,
is
no. See, here's the problem. You want to sit on this one instance. He's going across the board with his. It's not about one thing. It's not about being raped or any of that. It's about it's about the life inside of you after you've been raped or whatever, after you've been sexually assaulted. It's about the life inside of you. Now, if you're a pro-lifer, you're for all lives. So those kids that died in Gaza, that ain't something he wanted. You feel me? He want all lives to be um improved upon and nurtured into and all of that. You dig what I'm saying? So it ain't like he's saying rape is okay. He's saying rape is bad, but you get a life out of it. So you got to raise the life to maybe you get something out of raising that life. You never know. But if you get rid of it, you're missing something out of life too. You know what I'm saying? So I'm that 96, like I said, doing that, I guess doing the rape situation, I'm for letting her do whatever she want to do. I'm for letting her do whatever she want to do. But doing consensual sex and y'all have a kid, nah, you cooked. Your ass going to jail. That's just my thoughts, though.
That's an act of war,
Listen,
by the way.
first of all, when we're talking about rape and abortion, we should note that well over 99% of abortions are not undertaken because of rape. And so if you want to come with me and ban all abortions except for rape, I'll probably make that trade for you. Meaning, if you want to ban all abortions, elective abortions, and what I have to do is give
What I just say.
up abortion with regard to rape and incest, that is a trade on a pragmatic.
96% of me say, okay, fuck you. You're having a baby. The other 4% is like, all right, yeah, raped. Yeah, get rid of the baby if you want to, baby. It's okay. I understand why you would. You know what I mean?
Level politically that I would make.
okay, so you're not dying on that hill.
Well, it's not that I believe that, again, rape and incest, I think, is the reason people choose that argument is because it's the hardest argument to make emotionally from the pro-life side. But I think that we should note that the vast majority of abortions have nothing to do with rape or incest. They have to do with elective
Real talk.
abortion. What's that?
You never got the wrong person pregnant?
Jesus.
No, my wife 4 times, thank God.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's all for now.
That nigga Charlemagne is slow as shit. He said you never got the wrong person pregnant. But even at that point, right, it's not rape. So do you get rid of the baby because you got the wrong person pregnant? Nah, you just got to do this. This is what it is. You know what I mean? But man, tell me what y'all think about that in the comments. I'm 96-4 with it. You know what I'm saying? The 4% is for the ones who have incest. Incest sound like incest is consensual. Rape is not. So incest, you got to keep it, even if it got goddamn it 2 noses and a finger on his ear. I don't give a shit. You got to keep it. You chose to do that monkey shit. But rape, yeah, that's my 4% where it's like, yeah, that you can get rid of it. You can do your shit. Go ahead, baby. But nah. If you consensual, you got to keep the baby. You fuck ass nigga. You fucked up. That's all you did. You fucked up. Keep the baby and go broke, bitch.